to see that this building behind us will now be open for New Zealanders to come and visit and learn the stories of those intrepid New Zealanders who came from the uttermost end of the world, the earth, to come here to Europe, continental Europe, to fight for God, King and country, is a dream come true. It's taken a long period of time and the work of many people to make it actually a reality. And we're not quite there yet, because having acquired the building, that was the first step, and it cost us $1.1 million. The next step is to renovate this building, this historic heritage property that was the Mayor's residence in 1890, and to also renovate the buildings behind, the masonettes. There's 9 of them, 2 blocks of 4 in a single unit that were built for the gendarmes who occupied the site here from the Second World War until they left in September last year. Will require probably at least another $5 million to do that. At that stage we would be operational, that the place could be open as a visitor centre, there'd be a small museum arrangement here, till we can go to the next stage, which is to build an annex, a property adjacent to the heritage building that would actually function as a proper museum. And that's where the $15 million envelope for this project comes from.
That's a lot of money for the refurbishment. How confident are you that you can reach that target? And I suppose it's about getting Kiwis in behind the project. People have said this is a little known story of New Zealand, of the war. How do we get people on board? And we're talking about individuals, public bodies, corporations.
Well, what we're doing here today is part of that journey, part of that process. In fact, what happened on the Western Front from the New Zealand perspective at home is a little known story. And Passchendaele was a little known story until a couple of intrepid New Zealanders decided that story needed to be told, that on the one day, on the 14th of October, 843 New Zealanders lost their lives, the worst day in our history on the battlefield. That story came alive because people pushed it. The story of Quesnoy and what's happened on the Western Front is much the same. Of the 100,000 New Zealanders who went overseas between 1914 to 1918, 70,000 of them came to Europe, to Belgium and France. 12,500 never went home. And it's their story that needs to be told. And we need to tell it to the young people of this country, our country, New Zealand, who are interested. If you go to Auckland, there you will have seen the 18,277 white crosses in the Domain, each with the name of the individual soldier who went but never came back. It's quite an emotional sight. The young people that are connecting with that will at some stage want to come to Europe. And when they come to Europe, all roads will lead to Quesnoy. Because in Quesnoy, we have our place, a permanent place to tell the story of those New Zealanders who came so many, many years ago, and whose deeds on the battlefield are part of our DNA. They're part of what makes New Zealanders what they are. And I, like many other New Zealanders, are proud to be a New Zealander and respectful of the sacrifice that those men and women made those many, many years ago.
And so the focus here is not just on the battle to liberate Quesnoy. It's not just World War I, but it's also both world wars. In fact, it's the Kiwi war story.
Well, we don't have a place as New Zealanders where we can tell the story of World War I and World War II in Europe. The Australians, the Canadians, the English, even the South Africans have got their place. But this is now our place, so we can tell the story of those men and women who came and served, and some who didn't go home. And we want it to be a place that is funded by New Zealanders. It belongs to us. It doesn't belong to a few individuals. It's not a government facility. It's something owned by the people of New Zealand. And whilst the $5 million to renovate this property may sound a lot, but if you have a look around and see what's involved, it's actually very good value for money. We picked up this, courtesy of the French government and the town of Quesnoy, a 2.5 acre site a walled site with the magnificent building here, the mansion, the castle, and the 9 accommodation units for 1.1 million New Zealand dollars. The real money is going to be spent to bring it up to date. The foundations, the structure, the roofing, all sound, and a lot of work's been done, but it hasn't been properly utilised, occupied for a number of years. So now we're bringing it back.
So there's now a big fundraising drive, both in New Zealand and around the world, I imagine. What's the time frame? Because here we're seeing the unveiling of the site. Is it going to be in stages? When do we see the official opening?
The property was only purchased in September last year, and the fundraising's been building over a period of time as the public awareness goes out. We've been approaching significant New Zealanders to contribute to this. We've just recently been given the support of the New Zealand government that will allow those New Zealanders who want to support this project to have the ability to get a tax refund, a tax deduction for the donation. That's a huge milestone, and we thank the coalition government for putting that forward in the bill. It'll go to Parliament in the next financial year, or this financial year. That will make a difference. The other side of it is actually going out and reaching to the public, the young people, to contribute. We're still in that early stages, and I would think within the next 12 months it would be nice to see that we're actually in a situation where operational from the point of view of the museum and visitor centre. It'll take a few more years to be in a situation where the full arrangement is in place.